Sometimes being quirky isn't such a bad thing. It helps you to stand out from the crowd, and it might even turn a few heads. But how does that translate into the car world? Well, I think that quirkiness can be explained pretty well by the new T-Roc Cabriolet. It's a car that, well, isn't really like any other car on sale today. It is in fact the only convertible SUV available to buy in the new market. But as well as that function, what else does this car have to offer? Well, today we're going to be getting inside the interior, we're going to be finding out what it's like to drive, and we're going to be seeing how that roof operates to see whether or not this convertible is worth checking out. If you want a car that makes a statement, then we reckon the Volkswagen T-Roc Cabriolet is a great way to do it. It's a car that definitely turns heads and combines the chunky, compact proportions of the regular T-Roc with, of course, that folding soft-top roof. Incidentally, you'll take 9 seconds to close the roof and 11 seconds to raise it, and you can do that at speeds of up to 19 miles an hour. So you're more than able to get that roof raised if there is a sudden shower. Volkswagen has carried over the regular T-Roc's cabin into the Cabriolet pretty much unaltered, and I don't think that's a bad thing whatsoever. We've got some really nice materials throughout, and everything has a very pleasant, solid feeling to it, as you'd expect from a Volkswagen. We've got some neat controls for the heating and ventilation down here, and the main screen is pretty much what we'd expect from Volkswagen at the moment. Though it's not the largest system that we've become accustomed to from other models, it's more than large enough to display things correctly, and it's nice and accurate, and you can get used to the menus pretty quickly. One thing I do like is that there's a button down here underneath the roof mechanism button which allows you to raise or lower all of the windows together. That means you don't have to fiddle around with the separate window button selectors, you just use that one to go up or down, and I think that's a very cool feature. Most convertibles have a little bit of a drawback when it comes to rear seat space. They tend to be a little bit cramped and overall quite snug, but it's not the case in the T-Roc Cabriolet. Okay, it's not the last word in roominess, but I can sit back here quite comfortably. I've got plenty of room for my feet, and though my knee room is quite tight, I'm not uncomfortable here. I could spend quite a decent amount of time. We've got 2 USB-C charging ports in the back here, and there are also ISOFIX points for mounting a child seat. It's worth mentioning that this is a dedicated 4-seater. There is no middle seat here, so you won't be taking 3 people sat abreast in the back, but I think that's just fine. And actually, because of the SUV stance of the car, when you're sitting in the back, you've got a really good view out of the sides and you feel elevated so you can enjoy the whole experience. I just think it's actually quite cool sitting back here, and it means that everyone can enjoy that convertible driving style and everyone can have a good time while they're at it. If you are able to take 4 people along for the convertible experience, then you're probably going to want to take 4 people's worth of luggage too. And actually, I think the T-Roc Cabriolet does quite well in that regard. There's actually 284 litres of boot space available here. And though this is quite high, I kind of like the letterbox opening style, and also the fact that it is quite deep. So you can get plenty of luggage in there, at least 4 decent weekend bags, and also a good amount of shopping too. You can actually lower the rear seats down, but it only opens a kind of ski hatch style opening, so it can't be relied upon to really extend the overall boot area. But I do think that the practicality offered by the T-Roc Cabriolet might be more than you initially expect. Now, naturally, I don't think many people will be looking at the T-Roc Cabriolet thinking that's the kind of car that's going to set lap times. And actually, I think that Volkswagen has done well to lean into this more comfort-focused approach with the T-Roc rather than trying to make it stiffer and more agile once it's lopped the roof off. Incidentally, when you do take the roof off a car, it tends to make it a little bit more wallowy, and the body just can't deal with undulations quite as well. But I think the T-Roc does pretty well actually in this regard. It's comfortable and it's quiet, and it's quite a novelty sitting up high with the roof off too. You get a great view ahead of you, and you've got a great view around, and as I've mentioned, the people in the rear seats get a good view too. The steering is nice and light, and in all it just feels like driving a T-Roc that happens to have had its roof lopped off, and that's not a bad thing since the T-Roc has been a massive hit for Volkswagen. This car in particular uses a 1.5 litre turbocharged petrol engine. We're linked to a DSG automatic gearbox. We're getting around 148 brake horsepower, which is pretty standard. It's not going to deliver the kind of pace that's going to scare your grandma, but certainly gets up to speed in a quick enough time. It's also wonderfully quiet. You can really step on it and you can't hear anything, which I think is great because it leaves you to just enjoy the surroundings and that's what driving a convertible is all about. Plus, Volkswagen claims that you should be able to see around 44 mpg combined from this engine setup, and that means that there are very few drawbacks to this convertible. You're not going to be filling it up loads, it's not going to cost loads to run, and you're still getting the same roof-off experience that you get in any other cabriolet, but with just much lower running costs. I think, really, what's not to like? I just like the fact that it's quite an unserious prospect. You might have remembered that the only other previous SUV convertible that is around in recent times was the Range Rover Evoque convertible, and actually I quite liked that one as well, despite it getting, well, quite a severe panning across the globe, and certainly dropping off from new car markets pretty swiftly. But the T-Roc Cabriolet now has come back for its second generation, and I'm quite pleased about that, because this is a different car that has a little bit of character, still well executed, and isn't going to cost loads to run. I would like the tiniest bit more weight to the steering, but as I've mentioned, this isn't a sports car. This isn't meant to be chasing around Nürburgring lap times. It's an SUV that has had its roof cut off. So what can you expect from it? I think the T-Roc delivers just the type of driving experience that you'd want from a car like this. And certainly if you've got it 4 up, everyone's going to be comfortable and everyone's going to be having a good time. And that's the main thing. I'd also add that the wind buffeting in here isn't too bad either. As you can see, we've got quite a high shoulder line, and that means you're sat in the car and under this large screen. The rear windows also helped to stop from too much wind blowing across through the cabin, and even when you're chucking along at national speeds, 60 miles an hour, it's not getting too windy in here, and I could quite easily have a conversation with a passenger without having to shout over the wind. It's also quite refined with the roof up. Of course, it is a cloth roof, so there's only so much it can do, but I think when that roof is in place, it's quiet and it's not too noticeable against the conventional metal solid roofed T-Roc. Though it might be a quirky offering in the convertible segment, I think that the T-Roc Cabriolet should actually be taken quite seriously. I like the way it's executed. I think it's comfortable and easy to drive, and the engines that back it are decent too and well proven in the standard T-Roc. Of course, one of the best things about a convertible is sharing the experience with other people, and in that sense the T-Roc Cabriolet is one of the best convertibles out there, because you can seat 4 people in there comfortably and everyone can enjoy the ride equally. Though it might be on first glance a slightly strange alternative to the traditional convertible, I think the T-Roc Cabriolet is definitely one worth checking out, simply because of the practicality that it offers, and that's not something you usually get from a drop top. Thank you for watching this Motors.co.uk new car review on the Volkswagen T-Roc Cabriolet. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, leave us a like below and let us know in the comment section what you think of this car. Would you fancy driving an SUV convertible, or would you go for something more traditional like a Mazda MX-5, for example? And while you're here, please remember to subscribe to the Motors.co.uk YouTube channel, and if you click on that bell icon, you'll get a notification each time we upload a new video.